Welcome to the Fiber Girl Show, a podcast committed to connecting communities and accelerating businesses through fiber optics. Now, here's your host, Tanya Bohannon.
This is going to be a great podcast today. Fiber optics and construction. All of us face a lot of issues such as labor shortage, subcontractors, wondering what we need for new builds. By the end of this show, we will have taken a deeper look at these issues and how we can resolve some of them. That leads me to introduce our very special guest, Tyler Baccari, president of VBN Enterprises. Welcome, Tyler.
Thanks, Tanya.
I'm really excited to talk to you today about some of these issues that are going on. But before we go there, I also want to introduce my special guest, Teresa Kratzer, VP of T.A.K. Fiber Optics. She will be our co-host today. T.A.K. Fiber, we've seen a lot of things happen in the industry. Teresa, I bet you can attest to that.
Yeah, there has been a lot of changes in the industry from, just different turnovers of companies, the amount of work that's out there, just weathering the storms through different shortages as far as materials and all kinds of different things that we're just seeing daily how it has been changing.
There is a lot going on also in the industry with regards to rural broadband. All kinds of fiber grants are happening out there. Tyler, let's talk to you a little bit about that. But before we do, tell us a little bit about you and your company.
I got into the industry about 6 years ago, and for my company, I do basically material support. So let's say you need some fiber optic cable, or you need some splice cases, you need some strand for your fiber optic cable build. I'm the person to go ahead and help you out with that.
So when did you start your company?
I started my company back in, October of last year. And so I started slowly getting some of the clients I had before and working with them on specific projects, mainly for rural broadband, and a couple projects for for Verizon One or for other larger projects that are out there with different contractors.
Let's talk a little bit about that impact of RDOF and the infrastructure of broadband. What does that look like?
Yeah, so RDOF has already had the impact. So right now we're facing some pretty dire lead times. I mean, items that like just even a year and a half ago, say fiber optic cable, we were looking at like 8 weeks, practically sometimes in stock. At this point, with the 5 major fiber optic cable providers, right now, we're looking at 40 plus week lead times, minimum. There's a confluence of factors, right? So we had RDOF, which was a $9 billion infusion this year. Excuse me.
And those that don't know what RDOF is, what is that?
So RDOF is a program that was designed and developed for rural utilities, and there are some larger companies, but mainly the rural utilities, to set up for fiber optic cable infrastructure in smaller towns. So take, for instance, like if you're out in, let's say it's 60 miles north of here, the rural broadband infrastructure that we have even in Indiana, that 30% of people only have access to high-speed internet. So what's going to happen with those other 70%? And that's only if you're in the smaller town, like if you're actually in the town, right? So if they don't have access to it, you've already seen people going with their kids to McDonald's to do homework.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've heard of that, where they're sitting in parking lots trying to get Wi-Fi access, and then they can't because it's just so hit and miss.
Right. And it's a problem that's not just plaguing Indiana or the Midwest. It's all across the United States. And so that was why the RDOF was created. The utilities started hearing from, their members, hey, we need internet. We need access to not just, I need 5 meg, 10 meg. No, I need high speed, 100 meg, 200 meg, even gig access.
So a lot of this is being pushed through the electrical companies and the REMCs. Is that correct?
Yeah, so they're called rural electric cooperatives. We call them REMCs here in Indiana, but the main Yes, rural cooperatives is who's pushing this.
What do we think that looks like for a small fiber optics company? Do they get to play a role in the growth of this rural broadband?
Every single one of these rural electric cooperatives, or even whether it's me, a small player that's out here, or you're talking about a gray bar that's a multi-billion-dollar player, everybody is getting a piece of the pie at this moment. And because there's such a high demand for product, that's kind of where I've started coming in more recently within the last couple of months to help out not only just cooperatives, but to help out anybody, quite frankly, because where lead times stood. Again, like handholds that used to be in stock are now at 20 plus week lead times. We've seen, whether it's in steel or resin, we've seen those commodities prices increase. So we've seen rapid inflation, and we've also seen supply chain breakdowns. You see it in your trucking, of you getting your post, getting stuff from the post office, or getting Amazon Prime packages taking days or even weeks to go ahead and get them. Think about that for trying to get fiber optic materials. It's hankering down right now.
Yeah, that we're seeing that in so many different types of industries with the shipping, and everybody gets irritated thinking it's just their company, but it's all around.
Yeah. And then I'm saying too, it's probably creating a ripple effect through the industry, because not only are the supply shortages, then you have to have the labor forces to be available when those shortages become available.
Well, and that's been, and you can probably attest to this too, Teresa. I mean, there's work that's out there. You already know that there's work, and you've probably had to turn down specific work because you don't necessarily have the people trained up at this time. You're trying to find people, and I've talked to, 5 or 10 different contractors, and they have all told me I could use another 20 people. I could use another 50 people. I could use another 5 people, depending on how large their business is. But we're talking about, 10, 20% more workforce for these types of companies.
Let's talk a little bit about the fact that we've got all this labor needed out there, but people are looking for a cheaper labor. And with where we are in the world today, that's not too hard to find. And so small businesses who have the expert knowledge are kind of being pushed aside for some of that labor also.
What we're finding in our industry is because of the shortages, we may not have work for a little bit of time, but then all of a sudden then we have an abundance of work. So we need to bring on, 10 people, 15 people, or something like that. And so that's where it becomes kind of a tricky situation as far as that timing. And I'm sure a lot of these REMCs that are getting this federal funding have timelines they have to meet as well to make sure it gets pushed out to their customers. So it can be a real problem with how this is going with the shortages and the labor force.
Well, and really it's a multi-trillion-dollar question, because the infrastructure bill is in that infrastructure package. We're talking about what, 80, 100 billion dollars? I mean, RDOF was just last year and then this year combined 17 billion. And we're talking about having these types of shortages. What if we had that every single year for the next 5 to 10 years? Because that's what we're talking about. And the industry, it's been run off of just in time. Even for stocking distributors out there, you could hold $1 million worth of inventory and you can turn it in 30 days, 40 days pretty easily. But there's nothing in preparation for what this is. And the market nobody was prepared, especially when COVID happened. So then all these people out in rural areas and even in urban areas that wanted access to higher speed internet and better infrastructure, now, okay, here you go, but we don't have any material. There's no ramp up for this. This is probably unprecedented since like 2000.
This sounds like the health program I'm on. Nobody can get their supplies. Well, what do you as a small company and being involved in the industry, what can your company do to help with that?
I've garnered a lot of relationships over the last 6 years, and it's not like they're aren't materials that aren't out there. They just may not be the ones that you want to have, or they could be off-brand. So instead of it being from one of the 5 major cable companies, I offer fiber optic cable that's made from overseas, and it still meets all the Telcordia requirements. That's kind of what I do and where my niche lays.
I'm sure there's a lot of cable needed right now with these rural developments because the homes are so far away and you have such a distance to go.
So you have like a two-pronged, right? So let's take, for instance, you have a cooperative and it has 3,000 miles worth of pole line, right? And so within that condensed area, you may have 35,000 people. So you have like a 10-to-1 ratio, which is a fairly decent ratio to have. So, but you're going to have to put in for a ring about 350 miles worth of say 144, 288, depending on how you're going to build out your network. And so, but getting that kind of cable right now, of getting a 144 or 288, that's definitely close to like 40 to 52 weeks. And even in an overseas situation, you're talking about 14 to 20 week lead times right now. Whereas, like I said beforehand, it was almost on the shelf. So it's a pretty radical. It's pretty radical what I'm trying to do, because I'm coming into it saying, okay, I need to order this, and I need to get with this person over here because I think they have some splice cases, and I can go ahead and help out somebody. Or I've got some strand, or I have access to this aerial hardware, and it's a much shorter lead time. So that's kind of how, again, I know I'm not going to take the big piece of the pie. I just want a little piece of the pie, and that's all I'm trying to help out with people.
And I think it's going to take a lot of those little pieces of pie to help out, because there's so much to do in such a little time. Even
though I'm a small company, I still think I can do some good out here. I think I can still help out. It doesn't matter how large or how small your company is. That's just been my aim and my goal. But I think that's the overall goal of 99% of everybody out in this industry. We're such a large but small industry. Every time you go to a trade show, every time you always see somebody that you know, or somebody knows somebody that you know. And you could be out in Vegas, or you could be in Florida, or in New Orleans, or Nashville, or wherever across the whole country. And if you're talking fiber optic with somebody that's in the industry, they probably know somebody that knows you. And that's one of the craziest things that I've noticed. I've been in Maryland, I've been all over the place, and it just seems like, oh yeah, you know that guy? Yeah. Oh, how do you know him? Oh, we did a project over in like Jersey. What? You did a project in Jersey? Yeah. Or I did a project out in California, and the guy's he's from Alabama. How'd that happen? But you probably already know this. A lot of the work you had to travel for.
Yeah, we have. We've gone out of state before too, but I've always held this. My father started this company back in 1982, and he said, we're it's kind of like a big family, the fiber industry. We're always trying to help out other companies. There is some competition, obviously, but it like you're correct. It is different than a lot of different industries, because you're just here to help, and you're here to help build this network.
Yeah. Like I said, I've been in, before I found my career path in fiber, I've been down some other roads, and I just feel at home, even though, the overall sense that fiber is boring. Yes, fiber is definitely, there's no way to splice it, so to speak, right? Fiber is boring. But for whatever reason, we three here have a passion, and people that are listening probably have a passion for it as well. And it's in our own heads. We don't know why, but it is.
That's right.
So that's been my calling, and that's what I felt like I was supposed to do. Like I was supposed to do this, and I was supposed to help out people. That's been my motivating factor ever since I got it 6 years ago.
I think that is kind of our passion at T.A.K. Fiber Optics also. We know it's a business and we know there's competition out there, but I think, to serve greater mankind, it's really about just working together in this industry to accomplish that greater goal. And like you said, we've got kids who can't access the internet because they don't have access to fiber optics. And so it is about working together to create that all throughout the nation.
Well, and I think there's going to be an even greater toll is what does it look like, not just from the rural standpoint for kids having access to high-speed internet, whether they're in whatever setting they're in. It's what does the landscape look like if and when this infrastructure bill passes with wireless access points, 5G, and essentially having 5G throughout the entire continental United States. Because they talk about like IoT, Internet of Things. They talk about all these crazy ideas that can happen. Well, if they actually go through and do this, and this is done right and correctly, this literally changes our lifestyle and how we live in the next 10 years. The automated cars that are able to link in with wireless access points, the automated robots or automated anything that can connect into the 5G or 6G, right, from these access points. This could revolutionize the way how we communicate, revolutionize the way how we get to and from places, because then there's essentially, if they have the grid and it's up and it can hold up, then we could go theoretically like 200 miles an hour. I mean, I saw, this was like a couple years ago, there was a guy that was at a conference I went to, and he talked about this 2 years ago, about what 5G and 6G could do and what that looks like. And so that's why you're seeing Verizon and AT&T and T-Mobile getting into the 5G and 6G space. And same thing as Tesla with Starlink. They're wanting to get into that because that's not just a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's a potential multi-trillion-dollar industry with all the data that you can collect then, and then all the transportation cost, and then monitoring your vehicle. I mean, this is insane where we're going in the next 10 years. You thought the last 10 was fun. Look at the next 10.
Well, they're talking about autonomous vehicles, driverless semis. So it could change our trucking industry, our shipping industry, and also our finances, our financial industry with cryptocurrency. You almost have to have this grid laid, like what we're talking about, throughout the nation to be able to have different programs and different software ideas to go across these lines.
Yeah.
What are we going to do about the shortages? Do you think we see moving forward to 2022 that will change?
No. In fact, you're going to see steeper pricing happen. I'm not a financial advisor by any means, so don't take this as financial advice about what to do as far as like a build or buying anything for that matter. But if I'm looking at my crystal ball, I'm seeing that this inflation is going to stick with commodities, not just to the end of the year. I'm seeing this just because the supply and the demand is so great for these products right now. I see these prices and the demand just soaring throughout the next 5 to 10 years. And so we could really see lead times that are now at 50 weeks go and explode to 80 weeks potentially, depending on when this infrastructure bill passes. So, and it doesn't mean that RDOF, that money hasn't even been filtered out yet. So that was awarded last year. So that money is going to finally get filtered out towards the end of August, early September, most likely. So we're going to have like $6 billion worth of infusion capital out here. I mean, this is nuts. I think some people are bracing for this. I think some people are are prepared, and I think there's a lot of. It doesn't matter if you're a cooperative, you're a contractor, you're an independent telephone company, you're Verizon, you're AT&T. I don't think it matters. I think some people are on the edge of their seat right now because they just don't know.
That's why it helps to know people in the fiber industry. If we wanted to find out more information about you and your company, where would we go?
I have a website I'm still working on. It's VBNenterprises.com. But if you want to just get a hold of me, you can just type me an email at Baccari at VBNenterprises.com.
Tyler, you've given us a lot of great information. Is there anything else you think is important for those of us in this industry to know about?
I think you just need to hold on to your hats because it's going to be a bumpy ride going out. I think one trend that I'll just mention this. One trend that I am seeing is that these, whether it's rural electric cooperatives or larger network entities, they are going ahead and getting contractors on multi-year agreements now. That's something I haven't really seen before. Most of the time, if you look at the way how something is done, a project goes out for a bid, 3 bids and a buy, or maybe they have like 5 or 6 bidders on there. That's been the traditional way. Every single project, 3 bids and a buy. But now we're starting to see, because of the labor shortages, now you're starting to see contractors being taken up on 3-year, 5-year, 10-year agreements, doing handshake deals behind, a closed door, saying, "I'll commit to doing your projects for you and for you alone, as long as you keep building." These are real things that are happening out here right now that I haven't really seen, and that's mind blowing, and it just shows you where the market is at right now. Because a lot of times right now, primes are taking contracts at higher pricing, and they have a vast network of subcontractors that help them out. And because, again, money, cash flow, all those things go into it, these larger primes are taking a lot of these jobs and they're just managing them. They're letting the subcontractors go out and go do the work. Mm-hmm. So like I said, I haven't seen anything like this in my time, and I've only been here for 6 years really looking at this, but I'm sure this probably is reminiscent of probably like 2012 or 2000 of looking at these fiber booms that happen. Only this one, I think this is going to last another 5 to 10 years minimum.
So as a fiber optics company, whether you're large or small or just a construction company, it's important to get out there and network with other companies.
Yes, 100%. It's definitely important.
I can't tell you thank you enough. This has been a lot of fun. You have provided a lot of great information. If you are interested in knowing more about Tyler's company, you can find him at Baccari at VBNenterprises.com. And if you are interested in being a guest on our podcast, you can email us at Tanya@thefibergirlshow.com. That's Tanya@thefibergirlshow.com.